by Brad?
No.
Okay, let's move on to.
Can I just make a
Oh,
comment?
Well, I was hoping that Christina would stick around and listen to this part.
She
and
might.
body with it.
I'd just like to make a comment before we leave this topic.
Sure.
Christina,
And
they
that
want
is
you to
that-
stay and
that
listen
Bell
to
Creek
that.
within Bell
the
Canyon
end
is
of the
in
meeting.
Ventura County.
What,
And so this project, unless they want to negotiate something with Ventura, would have to stop. The most proximal area to the origin of Bell Creek would have to stop at the county, wherever the creek crosses the county line. And it would be that segment that would be included if Dan's opinions are heeded.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to discussion of possible action.
Oh, can I have one thing?
Yes.
One thing that did come out of the meeting, the biggest concern that most people seem to have about the whole park concept is security and lighting.
Yeah.
Well, I will add homelessness to that.
Yeah.
As part of security, as
Yeah.
homelessness and what the park may provide for those that want to encroach on it.
Thank you. Okay, so discussion and possible action for responsible parties at San Susan Field Laboratory testing at West Hills residences. And Alex is going to speak on this.
I contacted Mark Malinowski to go over two things. One is, my original goal was to see if there was information. He said there were many reports and lots of information about the testing of backyards in West Hills. And that they all indicated that the backyards were safe. I asked him if he had a list of those studies, and he said no, they don't maintain a list of the studies. So he's not in a position to come and tell us anything about the reports. I also asked him how his report was coming for the whole cleanup project. He says their goal is still to have it done by the end of the year, but he didn't sound too certain. So I bombed out with Mark Malinowski. I went back and looked at data, and there is someone who has prepared a summary of all of the reports and studies that have been made over the years. And that was Dixie Hambrick did that for Boeing, NASA, and DOE. And she went through and analyzed the reports. What she was looking for is that the data was complete and the reports were relevant, and she found that they were. There are 18 studies going on. I'll just read some of them. Sampling for annual site environmental, 1959 Crescent, Oak Ridge Associated Program. Springs and Seep sampling, Brandeis, Bardeen, Chatsworth, and West Hills. Area 4, radiological survey, Lawrence Livermore National Lab. Bell Canyon, former sodium disposal, perchlorate, groundwater monitoring, on and on and on. Total of 18 studies that have been done over the last, I don't know, many decades. Many of these started in 1994. Here's what she said. I'll just cut to the chase. The concentrations of chemicals and radionuclides measured in samples collected off-site of the SSFL are not significant in comparison to screening levels, except in the groundwater north of the main entry gate to SSFL. That's the northeast where they pump. And in sediment within the north drainage. These areas are the focus of current and future work, and remedial cleanup is currently underway. This was prepared in 2007. That's probably the only summary that exists that says they don't find anything in the backyard, either with groundwater, soil, or stormwater.
What was her name? Dixie?
Dixie Hambrick, Hambrick.
She's the blonde? Is she the blonde with glasses?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and she works for MWH.
Yeah.
And at this point, I must tell you, the science is there, the reports are there, tens of millions of dollars have been spent on all the science coming to conclusions. And yet, we're sitting here and listening to people who are saying it's a fraud. And I don't understand where to go from here. This indicates the backyards are safe, but there are some people who say the backyards are contaminated. There's one lady here who was very proud of the fact she broke up 2 escrows because she told them the ground was contaminated. So it's very frustrating that science is taking a second
That
position.
very same person, by the way, lives in West Hills, a few blocks from me, and I think we're 2.5 miles from the site. And she has grape lemons and limes in her backyard that she eats and grown in the ground that she says is contaminated. But for some reason, her quarter acre isn't contaminated. Yes.
Okay, I have a question. Let's talk about the baseball field for a minute, because both of my kids played
Yeah.
baseball there. My husband was a coach there.
This is a Rock and Valley Recreation?
No, the
No.
West Hills baseball field.
Does your husband have cancer?
On Valley Circle?
No, but that doesn't mean
Well, no, I'm
anything.
just curious.
But my question, or questions would be, okay, so what we're talking about is that creek there, which I've seen many, many times. I personally have never seen anybody in that creek. So I want to know what is in there that is causing this exposure, and how would people get that exposure to get the specific cancers?
Does that creek come off of SSFL?
It's the
Well-
outflow of Bell Creek from Bell Canyon.
I mean,
See-
that could be tested privately. For example, John Bird, who was in the audience, who believes that his cancer comes from work at the baseball field. Several of these people could have that creek tested and see if there is anything in there.
Well, hasn't that ever been tested?
I'm sure it has, but but people don't seem to believe the people that do the testing. I mean, there's a lot of people don't even trust DTSC anymore.
Okay, so would be my questions. Has it been tested? What is the relationship between what chemical and those specific cancers? Because Mr. Berg is saying that these coaches all have the same type of cancer. So wouldn't that lead you to believe it would be the same contaminant?
They would all have to have multiple myeloma.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
Could I answer the
people
question?
who would have had the best answers to that have left the room. So they were only interested in their presentation.
No. The stormwater panel and the equipment and the money that's been spent up there tests all water that comes off the SSFL. There is no untested water coming off the SSFL. And they're saying, in general, that water is cleaner than drinking water.
Yeah.
And so
Christina's
that creek
statement,
that you're
though,
talking-
would contradict what you just said, so. But we really only heard one side of the argument.
Yes.
We really needed to hear the other side.
I don't think Christina addressed the issue of testing water off of SSFL. I think that she was talking about the testing on site.
But what she's saying is that there are only technically results of clean water.
Correct.
That has been, okay,
But the water that's not being tested, that's going through the seeps and then coming outside of San Francisco Field Laboratory, according to what we understood from the meeting we went to, the stormwater expert panel meeting, has been tested and that it is clean.
we've gone to those meetings for years where they talk about the seeps and springs. You've been in them. We've been to meetings in Bell Canyon, at the, what was it called, the PPG, the work group. I mean, we've heard those for years. So what we're hearing is a big contradiction.
Yeah.
And Only one
This was
side
an
of
expert
it.
panel, though, the actual people, Ron was there, and Alec and I went, and, you know,
And me.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the people who presented this information are the experts who actually did the testing. Ron?
Yeah, I'd like to say, I mean, I don't recall all of their names, but
Stenstrom?
these people are not just
Yes.
experts in the sense that someone has decided they were an expert. They are, at the time that the panel members were chosen, they were all academicians. They come from all over the United States. They're not just within California.
Right.
These are recognized experts, not just nationally, but in many cases internationally. They're considered the authorities. They're the ones that have written the textbooks.
Yeah.
They're the ones that advise on how to best capture the water so that it doesn't flow unimpeded off the site, and advise on how to clean the water and how to test the water, where to test the water, etc. I don't think that any of these people, and I've spoken to them personally, are under the thumb of or influence of Boeing or any of the other RPs to speak some party line. I think that it would go completely against their ethics as far as that goes.
I agree.
And I think that they are sincere in terms of the things that they've recommended and the opinions that they hold and the opinions that they express.
Jan and I stayed after everybody left. As a matter of fact, Jan and I were the last two people to leave. And we spoke.
And I was right before, I left
You
right
left
before
right
you.
before us. And I mean, we all stayed and we talked to these people one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I went away feeling that they were giving us an honest presentation and representation of what's being done. And what we could see ourselves with our own eyes
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
the measures that they've taken to control.
on the hill.
Yeah, to control the
Yes.
runoff. I mean,
Yeah, there is-
really,
Yeah.
there
a
is-
tremendous amount of work
There's
being done.
virtually no small hill, no small canyon, no small crevice that doesn't have some type of water flow control or cleaning associated with it. I was amazed, quite honestly, on the tour that we had, to see the extent to which they have gone to control the water flow within the property in order to maintain control of what comes off that property. I would like to say one other thing, and that has to do with what there's an issue. One is what comes off the property, okay? Then there's the issue of the seeps and springs, which have been tested. They've been tested in Bell Canyon, they've been tested on the Amundsen, they've been tested in other areas. And from what I can see, the only place that something has really been found as a chemical of concern that relates to operations was the TCE from that one seep on site. When that seep flows, that water is vacuumed up. It doesn't flow down the hill.
No.
And it is then treated. The third source of contaminants within the water, okay, relates to what you mentioned, and that is that people do irrigation within Bell Canyon. The natural flow is into the creek, and so you're going to get some pesticide contamination, fertilizer contamination, and other types of contaminants that may be considered, you know, at very low level, detectable, potentially carcinogens, et cetera, that people could theoretically somehow be exposed to, not by going down there and bathing in the creek by the baseball field, but through some type of aerosolization or vaporization or whatever that they would be breathing in. That's about the only way that I could see, or maybe dust when flow is low and things are dry and then the wind kicks up and there might be some dust that contains something. But if it's not coming out of SSFL, there's another source for it, okay? When you talk about the epidemiology of 4 coaches with cancer, you know, how much time did they spend on that baseball field relative to other areas? When did they move into the area? in terms of being exposed to whatever's in the area. You know, there's a lot of questions that are unanswered in terms of their own lifestyle, whether they smoked or did other things
Their
that might have
genetics.
increased their likelihood of developing a cancer of one sort or another. So epidemiologically, it becomes very complicated. And I think Alec was absolutely right to say, you know, not we, but to suggest that that's a totally different area, and the committee,
Absolutely.
you know, that falls outside of the expertise or
Right.
even the purview
Yeah.
of this
So
committee.
Right.
So we're an hour and 10 minutes into the meeting, we're a little bit over, so I know
I
there's.
apologize.
No problem, there's 3 people that want to speak.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take them, I think in order, Char,
I think
Joanne,
Alec
and
was
Alec.
first.
It doesn't matter, whoever wants to go, what order.
Joanne, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that I don't recall seeing any of you guys at the Seeps and Springs
I was
tour.
there. Oh, tour, no, I wasn't.
Yeah, where they took us to many of the Seeps and Springs to show us how they were, how the water was coming out, where it should. We had to be careful of the poison oak. We had to look for rattlesnakes, you know, but we were tramping through the stuff, you know, to get to these Seeps and Springs. Oh, yeah, it was great, you know, because we could see what was actually happening, you know, and they took vials from right then and there and sent them for testing. So, and it was kind of hot that day too. So there was, you know, they have done this stuff,
Yeah,
Right.
you know,
thank you.
and they had students. Oh, that's the other thing. They had a bunch of students that were interning in geology and whatnot, and chemical engineering, I think. And they were the ones that were down there.
Thank you. Sure.
I just find what's happening, what we're hearing today, really troubling. I mean, my first trip to SSFL was somewhere in the mid to late 80s. And then, you know, on more recent trips, it's really a very different picture up there. And they really have done a tremendous amount
Lot
of
of
cleanup
change.
already, a lot of change. But, I mean, I think Christina, I mean, she's got good intentions. I think she's really trying to do something good here. But it's like, you know, there's this story and then there's this story. And it's like, our job, I believe, is to get to the truth and to disseminate that. And at this point, I feel like, where are we on this? I mean,
Yeah.
this is really like conflicting.
Well, it's
Can I-
difficult. Yes, Al.
There are 2 subjects here that are going on that are being commingled and sort of is a real problem. The one subject is the cleanup of the SSFL,
Yes.
all the technology, all the things, that's a big subject. But what gradually creeps in is people start talking about cancer.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert, and I don't profess to be. I'll give you an example. The lady who says that there are 50 children have cancer and it's a cluster, right? So the hospital hired Dr. Mack to come and take a look at it, which he did, and he said it's not a significant, and it is not a cluster.
Right.
Well, I don't want to get into that. I don't want
Yeah.
to get into the statistics of proving what caused children's cancer and so on. I think we have been put in a position where people believe that we're against the cleanup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're not
Exactly.
against the cleanup.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I kind of shied away from it, because it was becoming
Yes.
so political
Yes.
and hostile.
Exactly.
And I said, I don't need to spend my time. If I want hostility, I can go down and watch the Yahoos at City
So
Council.
that's why you don't want to come back to this committee.
But Joanne, I think you raise a very good point. When Merle talks, you know, he's talking from his heart.
Exactly.
He's concerned about cancer and children's cancer and so on. I wouldn't even know where to start.
No,
Right.
that's not the purpose of this committee, actually. Listen, I want to thank everybody for coming. It's been, I think, a very good meeting. And thank you for attending.
Okay.
Meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Bada bing,
Can I
bada
ask
boom.
you something?
Sure.
Because you are a doctor.